If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.
What it costs. I want to know what the truth is. And I hope that people, my son, anybody, if my name comes up, whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you can respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
Welcome to Skiba News Nation, bringing you unfiltered views, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And now, here's your host, Jeremiah Skiba, award-winning musician and son of Rob Skiba.
Strongest so far.
About how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
Hey Skiba News Nation family, welcome to episode 91 of Skiba News Nation, your weekly source of the latest news, controversial topics, conspiracies, forgotten history, and so much more. As of recording, today is my dad's 54th birthday, so we're going to dedicate this episode to him. So, episode 91, we'll be talking about Eurovision 2024. Supercharger can charge your phone and laptops in 1 minute. FDA approves lab-grown meat. Major cyber attack hacking dealerships. Louisiana requiring the 10 Commandments in schools, Joe Rogan interview with the first Neuralink recipient, white buffalo born in Yellowstone, Federal Reserve hack, Julian Assange is now a free man, an all-new OPA'S Corner, and for History's Mysteries we'll be talking about the Yuba County 5 disappearance, the craziest disappearance of all time, and the best Charlie bloopers on Skiba News Nation, memes, and much more. So stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned. So, as always, I'd like to introduce my great and insightful co-host who we had a blast with at HebrewFest this week, Mr. Jake Grant. Welcome, Jake.
Hello, everyone. It is great to have got to hang out. It was so great to hang out with you at HebrewFest, Jeremiah. I hope the trip was worth it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is very fun, and can't wait to do the Bertaria Times, who called me the other day, and they said we'll be with other content creators at like a round table, and you guys should definitely make it out there for that. But I really talked up HebrewFest to the guy I was talking to, and he was like, I'm gonna look into that. So I thought that was super cool. But yeah, man, fun.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It was great hanging out with you, and I was really pleased with how HebrewFest went. And I actually have a short video that I'm going to show our audience of some choice performances and a couple little pictures, and we're going to have to stick in the picture we all took together, Jeremiah, here as well. So.
biblical times, leaders would appoint priests and warriors to play instruments and sing praises on the front lines, fighting for Yahweh's people and serving the temple. Praise and worship played a profound role in both spiritual and physical battle, often perceived as an instrument wielded by Yah to inspire, protect, and lead. It is depicted as a means to communicate and evoke the presence of the Most High. One of the most notable examples is the story of the Battle of Jericho, where Joshua and the Israelites, following God's command, blew the trumpet and shouted, causing the walls of Jericho to miraculously collapse, leading to their victory. Music, when used in faith, evokes power and deliverance through the Most High. In this video, we will take you with us as we see Yahweh's people continue to use music in their lives to glorify and lift Him up, to fight battles, and to bring glory to His name.
Praise Yahuwah, praise Yahuwah. Shema, Shema, we the people. Shema, we the people. Shema, Shema. Like Paul, when I see truth, y'all turning the song. I know that say it's paying I fall. I see the evil exposing it all. Know that you burning is evil to fall. You're preaching things as I scripture it all. The Lord said I can't associate with y'all. That's the evil, but it's not what it's called. I don't want opinions, so I want chapter and verse. Chapter and verse. Chapter and verse. Please don't give me feelings, give me chapter and verse. Chapter and verse. Chapter and verse. Romans 2:6, you judge according to your works. But you say that ain't what pastors preaching in your church. 2 Corinthians 5:17, that's gon' hurt. But I'ma preach the word and none of that hate gon' work. Hold up. Now I don't know what you heard. Don't believe anyone that can't show you the word. Revelation 21:8, now let's observe.
My son, listen to the words I speak, the truth, it's calling. Hearken to the voice above to keep from falling. When the wicked call out your name to find and entice you, then you must stay strong, do not follow them.
Da-da-da-da-da, Monday Movie Magic, and now we're back. So yeah, Jeremiah, man, it was jamming there at the festival, and there were so many people out there. And one thing I noticed is that so many people came up to your booth and were sharing with you how much Rob had impacted their life. I mean, what did that mean to you, having all those people talk to you about how Rob had, influenced them?
Well, it always means a lot hearing that, because I probably hear it every day from somebody on Facebook to, a comment or, but it's so great to put a face to a name and actually connect with the person in person. But yeah, it was interesting because the number one question I was asked was, when is Seed coming out? And I just wanted to say, here in the next couple of days, the second comic book is going to be coming out. So the digital version, and we're trying to raise money for the Kickstarter to have the physical copy. So if you guys want to help out, it'll be down in the description. But yep, this is the cover, and it'll be out here in the next couple of days. So it was super fun, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, please, guys, go check out the Kickstarter Jeremiah set up for printing Seed comic book number 2. It's something Rob had almost finished, and it's not just donating money. You're actually going to be getting something for the money you put into the project to help Jeremiah and Sheila print that second edition of the comic book series. So yeah, man, anyways, yeah, we're just chilling out here. We had a little bit of a up with my RV brakes on the way to the festival, but we got those all repaired, and now we're just getting ready to go back for some wedding festivities for one of my buddies there in Kentucky, and that's kind of what's up with us.
Awesome, man. Well, before we go on to the current news, I wanted to share with everybody, me and Lindsay got a letter, our first letter as a married couple from Mr. Donald J. Trump and Melania Trump. And it was just so funny that it came in. It says, "We are pleased to congratulate you on your wedding as you celebrate this wonderful occasion with your family and friends. We will keep you in our thoughts and prayers for a lifetime of joy and happiness. We will see you at Graceland with very best wishes, Donald and Melania Trump." I made up that last part, but who knows? They might show up. I heard they might show up sometimes to different events, but I thought it was super cool that they got back to me super quick. So
That's sweet.
all right, man. Well, you got some good current news for me today?
Yes, we do.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. So this week, we had HebrewFest special last week, but there's some very important things that have been going on in current news. But just a reminder of the meme I shared previously, but a good one for this week as well. "He who does not offend cannot be honest." Thomas Paine. And so this is what I hope for my daughters when they grow up. "Honey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" "A threat to the new world order," right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really fun to see. And, there's things happening in the world today that show us that there is occultic powers at work in the upper echelons of society, the Illuminati, so to speak. Here's just a picture of Eurovision 2024. You have all the symbology and the artistry that could be just coincidence, but really does point to a deeper level of the way the world is heading in terms of the very dark nature of the people that are putting on these shows and influencing the corporations and the governments that control us. And why is this significant and provable? Well, I mean, look at this meme, right? 30 companies control the entire medical industry. 27 companies control the military industrial complex. 10 companies control the food supply. 6 companies control the flow of information, and they are all owned by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And so is it such a big question, in your mind that, oh yeah, conspiracy theorists, world elites are part of a ritualistic cult? Realist, oh yeah, right. The elites, meanwhile, right, literally are doing exactly what the conspiracy theorists are warning everybody. Hey, these guys have a NWO agenda that does not include you. We're just cattle. We're just money, printing machines. We're just chattel to be sold on the black market with our birth certificates. So, it's all connected, right? They're performing sacrificial rituals, worshiping Moloch, idolizing, chomo parties and rings. They support spirit cooking. Now, if only there was something connecting all of this together. Well, I mean, sometimes we can postulate, and sometimes we don't know exactly what's going on, but all the evidence is there for men and women who are selling their souls to the dark and implementing some of these wicked schemes on all of mankind. Now, one of the examples of where we're heading regarding the draft in the United States, the House passes NDAA, automatically registering the men from 18 to 26 for the draft. And boom, just like that, back to only 2 genders. What a coincidence, right? So it's not only destabilizing our culture by pushing their crazy liberal agendas, but also the war machine cogs are turning. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But before we do, check out this news from The Byte about how you just might be able to charge your computer or laptop or phone in just a few seconds. So somebody discovered a supercapacitor that could allow laptops to be charged in just 1 minute. This should interest our producer, OPA. and his love for electronics. It interests me because I'm tired of having to charge up devices for hours and hours, right? So the new discovery could pave the way for supercapacitors that can charge phones and laptops in 60 seconds and electric cars in mere 10 minutes. So this is coming out of the University of Colorado at Boulder, and researchers have achieved a breakthrough when it comes to our understanding of the way charged ion particles behave. A discovery that could be the key to figuring out the logistics for long-anticipated energy storage capabilities of supercapacitors. So it's a great leap, very interesting, pretty exciting. If you guys are interested, go and check this out at futurism.com. I can't tell you how excited I am for having a laptop that can be charged in just a few minutes, and especially during the heat wave of summer, being able to charge some of our electric fans in just a few minutes whenever we run them out of battery, just to fight off the heat, I guess you could say.
Yep.
But just a little fun piece of news and technological advancements that could benefit some technology near you. Let's now move on to some other a little bit alarming news. After FDA approval, states move to ban lab-grown meat from sale. Check out this video.
Aside from pushing people to eat bugs and insects as a viable alternative source of protein, well, there's actually a second simultaneous push to get people to eat lab-grown meat. The thinking goes that since the world is ending due to climate change, and since, of course, the agricultural sector contributes to climate change, we can do away with farms and ranches, and we can replace that meat with cultivated meat grown in a laboratory. And unbeknownst to most people, cultivated meat has already gotten the stamp of approval from the US government. That's because late last year, the USDA gave the green light to two different companies. Quote, Upside Foods and Good Meat, two companies that make what they call cultivated chicken, said they have gotten approval from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to start producing their cell-based proteins. Cultivated or lab-grown meat is grown in a giant vat, much like what you'd find at a beer brewery. This move follows a series of previous approvals which have paved the way for sales of cultivated meat in the U.S. Last week, Good Meat and Upside said they had received approval for labels for its product made from the USDA. In March, Good Meat said it had received a so-called no questions letter from the Food and Drug Administration. That letter states that the administration is satisfied that the product is safe to sell in the United States. The FDA issued a similar letter to Upside Foods in November. And so as you can see, the USDA as well as the FDA, which are the two agencies overseeing this industry, they have already given their stamp of approval for lab-grown chicken to be sold nationally, which, just as an aside, is something that not even Europe has done. Normally on these types of things, Europe is 1, 2, or sometimes even 5 years ahead of the US. But in the case of synthetic meat, the EU has not given any lab-grown meats the green light. And it actually doesn't even look like it's on the horizon, because doing so in the context of Europe would require a full review by the European Food Safety Authority. And that full review can take upwards of 2 years to actually finish. And as of right now, there does not seem to be any proposals on the table that were sent to that commission to get the ball rolling. Although, while we're on the topic of Europe in general, I will mention that on the flip side, you do have individual European nations banning synthetic meat. For instance, in November of last year, basically at the tail end of last year, Italy became the first EU country to ban the sale or the import of cultivated meat. You also have about a dozen other European countries looking to follow suit. Regardless, though, circling back here to the States, after the USDA made their decision, America became the third country in the world to allow for the sale of synthetic meat, right behind Singapore as well as Israel. However, since the US is essentially an amalgamation of 50 different states, what you're starting to see is individual states pushing back. And along that line, just 5 days ago, Florida enacted a new piece of legislation which bans and even criminalizes the manufacture and sale of lab-grown meat within the border of their states. While signing the bill into law, here's what Governor Ron DeSantis said about it. Quote, Florida is fighting back against the global elite's plan to force the world to eat meat grown in a petri dish or bugs to achieve their authoritarian goals. We will save our beef. There was also a press release made public that cited the bill as being essentially pushback against the World Economic Forum's goal of forcing the world to eat lab-grown meat as well as insects in general. Likewise, you had the Florida Commissioner of Agriculture come out in support of this new law as well, saying the following, quote, Florida is taking a tremendous step in the right direction by signing first-in-the-nation legislation banning lab-grown meat. We must protect our incredible farmers and the integrity of American agriculture. Lab-grown meat is a disgraceful attempt to undermine our proud traditions and prosperity and is in direct opposition to authentic agriculture. Now, just like with any issue, there are two sides to this story. And over on NBC News, they actually hosted a segment on this new Florida law wherein you had on one side Mr. Tom Rasmussen, who is a high-level executive over at Good Meat, which is that cultivated meat company, and on the other hand, you had Mr. Dean Black, who is both a member of the Florida State Legislature as well as a cattle rancher himself. Basically, these two men on that program represented both sides of this particular debate. And so, on his part, here's what Representative Dean Black said when he was asked about why banning fake meat in the state of Florida was a good idea.
There are certain micronutrients that exist in real meat that we know are important to human nutrition. And although the FDA has said that this type of product is safe, that doesn't mean it's healthy. And in Florida, we don't want our citizens used as guinea pigs. We think research and development is fine, but we think a lot of that needs to be done before we say this is going to replace an integral part of the human diet. Look, communist China and communist countries have a history of collectivizing agriculture and food production, and they use that to control their populations. And for this to make sense, it will have to be concentrated in large factories. And look, we are in a very tense geopolitical time with China, North Korea, Iran. And if you concentrate your protein production in a few major factories, you're a few missile strikes from an instant famine. Right now in our agricultural production system, our protein production is dispersed all across the country. It's impossible to take it all out.
On the flip side, however, you had the executive at the fake meat company lay out his arguments centered around leaving the choice up to the free market and for individuals to make themselves. Take a listen.
So we have the ability to grow meat much more efficiently than the conventional way. And that's going to be really important. I mean, the protein requirements of the planet are going to double between now and 2050. So adding another tool to be able to sustainably make protein is going to be really important. It's not going to replace conventional meat. We're not advocating for that. Certainly that's not being expected from the Florida legislature. But consumers should decide. They should be able to go to a grocery store and determine what type of safe and approved meat they want.
Now, aside from Florida, you currently have several other states in the nation in various stages of passing similar laws banning artificial meat. For instance, just 2 weeks ago over in Alabama, the state legislature, both the House and the Senate, approved a bill that likewise banned meat from cultured animal cells from being sold in the state. That bill is called SB 23, and it makes it a Class C felony to manufacture, sell, or to distribute food products that are produced from cultured animal cells. It's now sitting on the desk of Governor Kay Ivey awaiting her signature. Likewise, over in Arizona, you have state lawmakers considering 2 new bills there, which would also stop the sale of lab-grown meat. The first piece of legislation is House Bill 2121, which will prohibit anyone in Arizona from offering to sell or to produce a cell-cultured animal product for human consumption. That bill has already passed the House, and it's currently in committee in the state Senate. Then the second piece of legislation is House Bill 2244, and it's also passed by the state House, and it's currently also sitting in the Senate awaiting to be heard.
Man, how crazy that they're trying to shove lab-grown meat down the throats of mankind now. It's right up Bill Gates' environmentally friendly agendas, right? But it really freaks me out that they might be slipping these into our food supply, and we're just not aware that we're eating something that's cultured in a laboratory, right?
Yep.
Pretty alarming. What do you think about that, Jeremiah? Would you eat lab-grown meat?
No. I'd rather eat the bugs. At least I know that they were living at one point, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But I hate bugs, so, I mean, that's saying a lot. And you said the FDA approved that?
Yes, so the FDA has approved it, which is now moving to the state government legislation to ban it or
Man, have you heard of those produce, like bananas that are like rubber? That people are taking, like they're making TikToks about it and stuff. It's very similar, but it's with the fruits and vegetables.
Yes, I recently saw some clips regarding that, and you know, I'm curious. what are they doing to our food? And all the more reason for us to start being very sure of where our food's coming from, because the big corporate buildings that sell large amounts of bulk food and distribute for mankind, they're becoming very suspicious. And if you grow it yourself, raise it yourself, if you butcher, you have 100% chance of knowing if something is fish food.
Yep.
All right, so here's in some other news. All systems shut down in a major cyber incident that paralyzed thousands of U.S. auto dealerships. Check this video out.
This is WW7. A heads up here as we have more hack attacks happening across the country. This time, they are targeting U.S. auto dealerships. And this is big time. If you're not in a car dealership or involved with it doing business, I mean, most people out there are not going to realize how big this is. With these systems down, it means they cannot sell a single vehicle. Some of the places affected saying that they had a full showroom floor here yesterday, and that most of the people had to walk out and probably went across the street and bought a vehicle there instead. This affects 15,000 dealerships. That's absolutely massive. And this industry contributes 3 to 3.5% of the total GDP across the country. And now they're saying all systems were shut down again. Feeling like a bad dream. They said that they were going to try to have the systems back up by today. They don't know when. They don't know when full scale people are going to be able to get into the system and be able to write up everything that they need to do to get a car sold. So at this point, this is affecting car sales en masse. It's just another avenue that someone is attacking. They've attacked every sector that you could think of at this point, and it continues. I don't think it's going to stop. The big hit is going to be when they hit the banking and communication sector and bring it all down or freeze it up. That's going to be the big move. I've warned time and time again about it. You're not going to be able to get anything out of the bank, anything out of accounts, cash anything out. None of it when this happens. But most people will ignore it and go on to the next show of entertainment, and they'll get hit by it when it comes because they didn't listen. Anyhow, I hope most of you are implementing your plan out there. It's just about go time.
Very interesting. Now, of course, I think cyber warfare and cyber attacks are very important to pay attention to, more and more so as the world's infrastructure is based on these systems. So with that shared, check out this next clip, which is about some very positive news where the 10 Commandments are going to be required in Louisiana after some recent conservative Christians make a case for keeping God in the classroom. Now, this is a Not the Bee article talking about how somebody's saying, oh, no, they should still keep it out. It never did any good, but let's look through this briefly together. If you missed it, Louisiana passed a law requiring the 10 Commandments instead of things like pride flags to be displayed in the classroom. Good for you guys, Louisiana. Now, this article, of course, is about a guy named David French who is talking about how they shouldn't put it in the classroom. It did no good. But somebody commented, just tell David French the 10 Commandments will be obscured by a pride flag in the classroom and he'll be fine with it. Thou shalt not post the 10 Commandments in the classroom. But, you know, this is the foundation in which this country's system was built, is a moral basis based on the scriptures. And so it has always been a back and forth between the conservative and liberal parties regarding the inclusion of biblical tenets in a classroom setting. And of course, the argument is separate church and state. They have now separated the raising of your children with biblical principles. And I guess the lawmakers in Louisiana have seen through this. Here's another very interesting article that just came out about how Israel has admitted giving Ethiopian women birth control shots. The health minister director general instructs all gynecologists in Israel's 4 health maintenance organizations not to inject women with long-acting contraceptive Depo-Provera if they do not understand the ramifications of the treatment. And of course, this is in relation to, alleged racism in Israel, because you have Ethiopian women who are making aliyah and claiming their Jewish heritage and moving to Israel. And there does seem to be some discrepancies in the treatment of people that they don't view as true Jew or are coming from the Ethiopian descent, which is very sad. And this reminds me of some other contraceptive and poisoning things that have happened recently in the United States and all over the world. So basic bottom line, be very suspicious when somebody wants to put something in your body. Yep. All right. Once again, this is old news, but yeah, it is going on in the world today. Here's something other that I want to share regarding medical advancements and very interesting things. This is Noland Arbaugh being interviewed on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's the first person to receive Neuralink's microchip implant after becoming paralyzed. And what I wanted to focus in on is the last few minutes of this conversation regarding the ability for computers to control the limbs of animals that they have implanted them in, and could this lead to some grand concerns later on when this becomes a more widespread medical device used in humans?
The Joe Rogan Experience.
So what this implant allows you to do is you can interface with a computer and you can use keyboard, you can type in URLs, you can play video games.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Yeah, so basically, excuse me, my implant has like a Bluetooth connection to the computer. And then through that, Neuralink has created an app that they have uploaded to the computer, and through that app I can interface with the computer. What it does is all of the electrodes on the threads are sending neuron spikes, neuron signals, and so it's all implanted in my motor cortex. Through my intentions, so say if I want to try to move my hand left, right, up, down. I can't really move it. I have like a little bit of movement in my hand, but I can't really move it. But the neurons are still firing. That intention is still there. So like those signals are being sent. There's just a cutoff in my spinal cord. So obviously it's not getting down. But it's still going on in my brain. And those electrodes are picking up those signals. And there's an algorithm, like machine learning going on in the background that is taking those intentions, and over time it is learning what I'm trying to do, and that translates to cursor control. So, yeah.
A hope in the future of utilizing this technology to help people regain movement?
Yeah, that's one of the plans. I don't know if you've seen anything on it. Basically, they do something similar to what the stem cell, a lot of the stem cell research is. A lot of the stem cell stuff is, implant stem cells above and below the level of injury, and those stem cells will migrate basically and create a bridge. Some of them have even talked about injecting right into the level of injury. So with the Neuralink, the plan is to implant one in the brain and then implant one below the level of injury, and then the Neuralinks will just talk right to each other. All the brain signals that it's picking up in the brain, wherever it's implanted in motor cortex in this point, in this scenario, would go straight to the other one, and it would send it right through your body like it should.
And do they have a plan on when to try this?
They're already trying it in animals. They have one in a pig. You can watch the video of it, where basically they have an implant in the pig's brain and an implant in the pig's spinal cord, I think in the thoracic section of the spinal cord. And they have been moving the pig's legs on its own. The pig's not paralyzed or anything, but basically they tell the pig, come to this section of they like grid off the floor and they put food in a section of the grid. And they're like, if you're okay with us testing on you, pig, come over here, basically. And the pig will go in there, and then they will take control of the pig's leg, and they will like start playing around with it, like making the pig. Yeah, so this right here. So all those movements right there, the pig's leg are them. They're doing it. So, and this is just the beginning, obviously.
So this is flexor movement. It's saying, and the pig is lifting its leg up unconsciously. It's not doing it on its own.
Nope, they're doing it all.
Dude, how long before they can hijack people? How long before the CIA can hack into you?
Yeah, I know, right?
That's like, I mean, that is the ultimate fear of human beings becoming cyborgs, is that we're going to be subject to all the problems that our computers and our phones have with malware and spyware and
hacking. I mean, people ask me all the time if this thing can be hacked, and short answer is yes. But at this point, at least, hacking this wouldn't really do much. You might be able to see like some of the brain signals. You might be able to see some of the data that Neuralink's collecting, and then you might be able to control my cursor on my screen and make me look at weird stuff. But that's about it.
Very interesting. So what he broke down there, Jeremiah, with the possibility of RoboCop, somebody who's basically just a head attached to a robot body, could totally be coming about in the near future. And they talked about how they were able to move a pig's limb without it having any conscious thought to do that. And so if they're able to connect somebody's, severed arm to like a robot arm, or connect, a body part to another body part, and use a computer to make motions and actions, man, just so interesting. And also the description between imagined movement and attempted movement, and how eventually, if you connect your brain to this simulation, like the holodeck in Star Trek, or you plug into the Matrix, so to speak, your imagined and intentioned action could translate to you actually physically interacting with a world, and even maybe feeling interaction from a digital fake kind of augmented reality, which when you think about it, man, that would totally change the way people got into immersive gaming, if you know what I mean. But also, wow. What do you think about that kind of topic, Jeremiah?
Well, I think it's crazy that they can move the limbs of like animals and stuff, and I just hope it stays in the right hands, not the wrong hands, because it could totally be used for nefarious purposes.
Oh yeah. Hey, in another area of a little bit more historical news, recently I've been looking into the differences between the Septuagint translations of the scripture, of the Hebrew scripture, and the more modern texts that we get, like the King James Bible, which is the Masoretic, and the Textus Receptus. But the reason I find this significant is because there are some very meaty differences between the Septuagint and other translations of the scripture. So I just wanted to share this quick video breaking down what is the Septuagint and why it interests me currently.
The Septuagint is one of the most important Bible translations you might never have heard of. The Bible has a long history of being translated into many languages, and the Septuagint is an important example. The story of its origin comes from the letter of Aristeas from the 2nd century BCE. The letter says King Ptolemy II, a Greek king of Egypt, commissioned a translation of the Hebrew Bible for his library in Alexandria. 72 translators worked on the project. That's why the Septuagint is abbreviated with the Roman numerals LXX, or 70, rounding 72 translators down to 70. These scholars translated the Hebrew Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, into Greek. Greek was the common language of the Mediterranean area. Over time, the rest of the Hebrew Bible was also translated into Greek. The Septuagint includes the entire Hebrew Bible, plus several additional Jewish texts written in Greek. The Septuagint is the earliest surviving witness to how Greek-speaking Jews read the Hebrew Bible, including the Jews who wrote the New Testament. Translators always try to convey the sense of the original language. Some prefer to translate word for word, while others translate the overall thought each passage conveys rather than using the exact words. The Septuagint is a thought-for-thought translation. The translators altered Hebrew words and phrases to convey their understanding of the biblical text into Greek. For example, expressions about God as a rock were changed, perhaps to differentiate the Jewish God from the stone images of Greek and Roman gods. Many of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written around the 1st century, are from the Septuagint. The Dead Sea Scrolls are some of the oldest surviving biblical texts. By the time Jesus was born, the entire Jewish Bible was available in Greek, the common language of the Mediterranean. New Testament authors usually cite the Septuagint in their writings. Studying the Septuagint is very helpful for scholars who want to understand how Jews and early Christians read the Bible at this important period in history. It's an invaluable historical document and a testament to the long history of Bible translation.
All right, once again, that's a video Wes Blaze Jones shared, and we met him out at the HebrewFest music festival. He had a fantastic performance, and you know, I find this very interesting, and we live in a day and age where more than any other generation, we have had access to ancient documents, to translations, and the ability to interpret and dig into the scriptures more so than our forefathers. And so it's an exciting time to be alive, and that's why I think it's news today. Because while there's all these things happening around the world, the opportunity for the generic layperson to dig into the truths of the scripture and to unpack the lies that we've inherited in innocence and kept in ignorance is enormous. Like, the opportunity is huge right now to really do your homework. Here's another interesting, almost prophetic thing that happened in the news is the reported birth of a rare white buffalo, which happened in Yellowstone Park and fulfills a Lakota prophecy. So very interesting. Check out this white buffalo. How cute, man. What a unique sight that is.
Mm-hmm. It's not albino.
Now,
it's like
course,
full white. That's crazy.
Yes.
Albinos normally have white
eyes
or red eyes.
Yeah, I think you're right. This ties into a Lakota prophecy that portends better times, according to members of the American Indian tribe. But not only this, you know, when we see things like this coming about that are just so interesting, you know, I can't help but to wonder if there's some type of actual prophetic significance to headlines like this, despite the fact that prophecies 2020 in hindsight, and I have no idea what a white buffalo baby means. Very cool to look at.
Mm-hmm.
In another area, check out this Epoch Times, which is, did you know that nearly half of U.S. online job postings are fake? A fake job, a ghost job, or a phantom is a job posting for a position that does not exist or has already been filled. Oh, yes, I know that. Well, looks like 27% of people. As we have an increase in AI technology facilitating people to do their jobs quicker and easier by not even really trying and just plugging it into a machine, we have people also balancing this act of a mobile work and work from home that was implemented in 2020, 2021. And so there's a weird dichotomy here between people relying on technology to work more from home and also relying on technology to eventually, what I think, will steal their jobs. And so there's a very interesting balance happening right now when it comes to the job market. Here's a interesting article that came out, which is scientists discovered genes that cause you to gain more weight from the same food. Oh, we found a clear genetic trigger for obesity. And the reason I bring up this article found over on Futurism is the push for genetic modification through mRNA technology. And of course, now that they find the gene that makes you fat and makes you fat when you eat foods you like, what's so wrong with splicing into your gene something that'll keep you from being obese? You know, so it's like this. Here is something else regarding some interesting cyber warfare. A video about might have just happened to the Federal Reserve. Check this clip out.
Hey, Internet friends, big news. Scriptwriters are going crazy this week. An allegedly Russian-linked group hacked the U.S. Federal Reserve and is threatening to expose America's banking secrets. The group is called Lockbit, and they threaten to release 33 gigabytes of banking information if their demands are not satisfied by 4:27 p.m. Eastern Time today, June 25th. Of course, every time I see 33, I see gang signs. It's that notorious Masonic 33, because what other number would it be? Lockbit posted on the dark web that a negotiator from the Federal Reserve offered them $50,000 in exchange for not releasing this information, which they rejected. And I'm just going to say I don't have a dog in this fight, but I agree $50,000 does seem a bit stingy. What are you going to do with $50,000? Buy a Kia? The Federal Reserve has declined to comment on these claims as of yet. On Monday night, Lockbit posted a countdown on the dark web to disclose the central bank's data. And okay, let's just take a moment to speculate. What information could they really have? Apparently, according to this article anyway, 1 terabyte of data holds 6.5 million documents. So what did I just say? They have 33 terabytes of American banking secrets they're willing to release? What secret sauce you reckon they have in there? Also, I'm no mathematician, but I did take math before they let you have a calculator in class. So 33 times 6.5. You carry the 15, it's roughly 215 million documents, Internet friends. So what's the big secret? What's the big secret, you reckon? That these jerks just press a button that prints money or prints debt? It's literally just a button. It's not backed by anything. That's the esoteric wisdom of the Federal Reserve. Compound interest based on nothing, just based on Babylonian mathematics, interest on interest. Of course, probably no one who is watching this actually needs me to repeat this, but I will. The Federal Reserve, founded by an act of Congress in 1913, is not a government institution, but a private banking system with private interests ran by a shadowy group of people who manage the United States monetary system, a cabal. A cabal, if you will. They have 12 banking districts nationwide, so let's run down the list, okay? Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, Richmond, Atlanta, Dallas, St. Louis, Cleveland, Chicago, Minneapolis, Kansas City, and San Francisco. I thought Seattle was one because didn't Bill Gates' great-grandpappy run the Seattle Federal Reserve? They're saying a hack of this magnitude might expose citizens' social security numbers, bank accounts, and other personal information to aid in identity theft. That doesn't really stir any fear in me, and I don't know why. I think it's because I had a MySpace when I was 12. By the way, why do hiring companies always need your social security number just for the hiring process? Why is sharing your social security number basically as casual as showing your driver's license now? They're also claiming that the misinterpretation of market reports in these hacks might crash stock values. Meanwhile, other analysts believe Lockbit's allegations are just mere threats. To give you a little more information on Lockbit, they've ransomed over 2,500 people worldwide since 2020, 1,800 in the U.S., earning them over $150 million. So we agree then, the $50,000 offered allegedly by the Federal Reserve negotiator is just a drop in the ocean. Daily Mail says here that Lockbit is a double extortion group that encrypts customer data and threatens to reveal it if their $1 million ransom isn't paid. And Lockbit allegedly attacked Boeing days after a November breach on the U.S. Treasury, saying it had a great amount of critical Boeing data in October and would release it if Boeing didn't pay a ransom by November 2nd. Boeing's got a lot going on right now, don't they? Last year, the group was labeled one of the most professional organized criminal gangs in the criminal underground. Wow, did you mean to make them sound so cool? Did I just become a fan? Do y'all have merch? I swear in all these videos, the more videos I do, the more I teeter on the edge of this villain arc. I don't know what's happening. According to ransomware researcher Dominic Oliveri, Lockbit is probably simply blowing off steam, and there's no proof that the group attacked the Federal Reserve. Thank you, Dominic, for your insight. Anyway, I came all this way to say that the same folks who have the nerve to assign us tax slave credit scores are over here some odd $1 trillion in debt with unsecured passwords. Or maybe they hacked themselves to crack down on all this information to encrypt it in our little brain microchips where you get scanned like a QR code in their classic Hegelian dialectic problem reaction solution we all know they love so much. Or maybe it's going to be an imminent banking collapse based on the release of this data. Or maybe it's nothing. I don't know. When I saw the 33, my mind was made up.
Supposed Russian hacking Federal Reserve stuff. Very interesting. Now, we did talk about dealerships being hacked. Well, here's something more physical to pay attention to. If you own a Ford pickup truck, Ford recalls over 550,000 pickup trucks because transmission can suddenly downshift to first gear. How terrifying, going down the highway, going 70, and then boom, you're back in first. That could be deadly. So if you own a F-150 from the 2014 model, you could be in danger. So heads up about that one, everybody. Here's another article regarding something that we've brought up actually last Skiba News Nation episode 90. I mentioned how I wish we could hear more on Trump regarding Julian Assange and what he's done to expose some of the corruption, but yet the American government seems hell-bent on, pasting him as a traitor and a whistleblower who, needs to be in jail for life. Well, Julian Assange is now back in Australia, a free man, and here's what we know about the U.S. plea deal. Check this video out.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is expected to appear in a U.S. courtroom on Wednesday to accept a plea deal with the Justice Department, but it won't be in New York or Washington. The 52-year-old Australian is heading to the Northern Mariana Islands after spending the past 5 years in a London prison. He's expected to plead guilty to a single count in one of the largest ever leaks of classified U.S. government material. In return, Assange will avoid spending any time in an American prison and return to Australia a free man.
Throughout the years of Julian's imprisonment and persecution, an incredible movement has been formed. A movement of people from all walks of life, from around the world, who support not just Julian and not just us and our family, but what Julian stands for, truth and justice.
So, founder Julian Assange pled guilty to espionage charge in front of a U.S. judge Wednesday and walked free after his 12-year battle against extradition to the United States, ending in a plea deal. So, this is a controversial figure. Of course, he's tied to WikiLeaks. He exposed some of the stuff happening in the past 10, 15 years, and now he's been in this ongoing battle for his freedom. But he is a whistleblower for truth. And just like our meme started out, if you're not willing to offend some, you can't speak the truth. And he definitely offended the powers that be, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Now here's another article covering the same topic. Julian Assange leaves jail on his way to enter plea deal with the U.S. And so, of course, we talked about that. Here's a video regarding the depletion of major groundwater sources threatening Great Plains farming. Check this clip out.
In the heart of the country, Great Plains farmers and ranchers produce a quarter of all U.S. crops and 40% of our beef. But they rely on a resource that has been slowly drying up, water. Stephanie Tsai reports from Kansas for our ongoing series on climate change and water, Tipping Point.
So this is a small glimpse of what the Dust Bowl type situation was.
Brant Peterson farms grain in dry southwestern Kansas, where erratic winds can whip dust into the sky at a moment's notice. It's difficult land to farm, but Peterson is committed.
My wife and I are both 5th generation farmers, raising the 6th generation. We've been through a lot of droughts. I won't say that it's any worse than anybody else had, but I just do know that what I've had to do with has been tough.
Farms like Peterson's are a vital part of the global food system. Much of the grain he grows heads to the massive cattle feedlots that surround him in western Kansas, powering the state's multi-billion-dollar beef industry. Nearly a quarter of all the steaks on our dinner plates come from Kansas.
We are completely dependent on agriculture. It is the lifeblood of our communities.
Katie Durham runs the Groundwater Management District in west central Kansas.
You just drive around town and anything from, our banks to the implement dealers, anything that you see in town is all tightly related to agriculture.
And the agricultural industry here relies on one increasingly scarce resource.
Without groundwater, we would really cease to exist.
Nearly all the groundwater in western Kansas is tapped from the Ogallala Aquifer, a massive reservoir that runs under parts of 8 states from South Dakota to Texas. But as the darker color on this map shows, parts of the aquifer, especially in Texas, Oklahoma, and western Kansas, are in deep decline. That's a problem because the economy here relies on water-intensive crops, namely corn.
We don't have the streams. It's raining right now a little bit, and that's kind of a little bit unusual. But what we do have is the Ogallala Aquifer underneath our feet.
Brownie Wilson of the Kansas Geological Survey regularly measures the water levels at wells like this one throughout Kansas. He's seen some wells drop more than 100 feet since 2001.
What we're doing now is not sustainable. We track every year the water levels are dropping. I've seen more places where the aquifer just physically cannot support that pumping demands anymore.
Between the different layers of the aquifer.
The depletion isn't uniform. Durham describes the aquifer's topography as an egg carton.
You have these pits and valleys, and it's very, very dynamic, and that's why we call it saturated thickness. And so some areas are going to have more saturated thickness than others. Likewise, some areas are going to have more decline.
Unfortunately, Peterson is in one of those areas in southwest Kansas, seeing the state's steepest declines in groundwater.
I've abandoned over half the wells on my farm. They're not feasible to pump anymore. Now, if I wanted to be a water baron, yeah, I could pump all year long and make something happen out of it, but I can't sleep at night doing that.
Because you know how that ends.
I know where it ends.
Does that end with the end of livelihoods?
Yeah, but what worries me more is the communities and the people.
War, famine, drought, and pestilence. All these things causing the decline of our food supply, hard times across the world. So worth paying attention to. Here's another positive note. Now, this is from a Tennessee governor who has called for days of prayer and fasting in July. Now, this is, of course, on the hind end of hijacked Rainbow Month. It's good to see, people of faith stepping up, regardless of if they have everything right. At least they recognize the need for the Almighty's hand in their government, populace, and they're trying to encourage people to participate in active repentance and acts and demonstrations of faith. Bring about change in the culture, right?
Yep.
So, very interesting. Now, this year is, of course, the year of the dragon. And I wonder if there's any correlation to this and how Prince Charles was coronated as, and he likens himself to being the red dragon, the seal of the monarchy. And we also have the interactions with China and the world, and the things that are represented by this Chinese Year of the Dragon, and warfare, and all these kind of things are interesting. And so I just wanted to point out to people who weren't aware that this year is the Chinese Year of the Dragon. And so while there might be some kind of alleged meaning to this that affects the world, some people pay attention to this stuff, And so if anybody knows more about this and has any associations with the Year of the Dragon and things that they see happening in today's year, please leave a comment below. Some more market news. Analysts warn of a looming U.S. stock crash and draw parallels to 1929. And their parallels are tied to a bubble they believe is happening regarding the AI sector. Market experts are sounding the alarm on the stock market's current trajectory, particularly drawing attention to the extraordinary rally of NVIDIA and AI hype. And so the parallels to 1929 are stark, they say, when the market soared to dizzying heights before plunging into the Great Depression. And so that's apparently what they're seeing.
I'm sorry.
I thought this was posted by Anchor Bear over here on Instagram. And you can just see it's like this prolonged waving, like, I miss you, buddy. Goodbye, buddy. Goodbye, friend. I'll miss you. Bye. Bye. You know, of course, I'm sure it was just all for camera, you know, this and that. But it's just, it's like this dramatic separation of longtime friends that will miss each other. Oh, man. I got a kick out of that. Hopefully you guys did too. One more important clip. Here's a clip of some military movement of U.S. tanks and big vehicles in New Orleans. And the Post says they cannot say we're not going to war. Man, so just crazy to see so much military vehicles moving. You're seeing mobilization all over the world, particularly in European countries. Now that you see, you know, sometimes this is just a thing, you know, over the past 2 or 3 years, you know, large military convoys and migration of military vehicles. But I wanted to encourage anybody who is interested in this topic to check out a video I recently saw that was put out by Dr. Pigeon, and it's a breakdown of World War III prophecy in real time. It's just an hour-long video, and he breaks down some of the worldwide political interests, and I got a lot out of his analysis. And so I wanted to encourage anybody who is interested in this topic and the looming threat of World War III to watch this recently posted video.
Etc. With the exception, they might have some competition from India. And so with that going on, this scene has been now developing where China's GDP has exceeded the United States gross domestic product. The Chinese gross domestic product is greater than the US. And even then, the comparison between the American gross domestic product and the Chinese gross domestic product is ludicrous, because our GDP is premised upon puffed up valuations. Now, you might recall Trump got convicted on 39 felonies for quote unquote puffed up valuations. But the United States is totally guilty of the same thing, where we claim our GDP is this because certain hedge funds have been buying up real estate and then pulling the real estate out of the market so that demand continues to increase, but the supply cannot be fed because they're hoarding the supply, causing an inordinate spike in the cost of real estate, which then drives the value of the real estate up, which then drives up the stated value of the GDP. All of it is predicated on gigantic balloons of overvaluation of American assets. So our GDP is much lower than what's being stated, and it's much lower than China's GDP. And so once the Democrats began to see this, and certain people in the Pentagon began to see this, hey, look, we're slipping. These guys are now the #1 country in the world. Let's figure out a way to go to war with them. And so this agitation begins over Taiwan. Well, they think of Taiwan as part of China. Let's go over there and stick 2 fingers in their eye and tell them we're going to take Taiwan away from them. And we might do it through a color revolution, or we might just arm them up to the teeth and dare them to come in and fight the United States and Taiwan. So this is what has been going on since Biden took office too. He's been picking a fight with China. He picked a fight with Russia. And now you can see that Israel has picked a fight with the entirety of the Arab world. So in this milieu now, let's take a look and see what's happened. Well, the Russians have moved dramatically against Ukraine. Ukraine has a minimum of 500,000 war dead in the grave, and probably more like 700,000. And virtually all the armor that has been supplied to Ukraine, tanks, Bradley fighting machines, armored carriers, MRAPs, so on and so forth, and the occasional Renault that comes in from France, all of those have been destroyed on the battlefield. I mean, virtually all of them. And so the Ukrainians will not post any of these things out on the battlefield anymore because the battlefield has changed. The battlefield is controlled by satellite scanning and imagery and heat-seeking drones and drones with GoPro cameras on them that can hone in their target with exactitude. And small drones that are less than $100,000 are taking out multi-million-dollar tanks. And the only defense is to shoot a multi-million-dollar Patriot missile at a drone that they might miss, and that they might even be able to may not be able to pick up because the drone's flying beneath their radar. So you can see this is the kind of milieu that's been happening in Ukraine. Now the Russians are able to advance anywhere they want, basically, in Ukraine. They can go anywhere they want. There's no army left to be able to fend them off. You might have a bunch of guys standing there in uniform, but they do not have the ability to fight the Russians, to prevent the Russians from advancing. And NATO knows this. And so this is why NATO is talking about putting German troops in there, French troops in there, Finnish troops in there, Polish troops in there, Romanian troops in there. They're all talking about this. And this is why the Biden administration continues to escalate this war by bringing in longer range missiles that are being used now to strike civilian targets inside of Russia. And that's what they're doing. They're targeting residential areas, they're targeting apartment buildings, they're targeting theaters, they're targeting homes, they're targeting civilians, intentionally targeting civilians with American long-range weapons. Now the discussion is, of course, that they're going to put F-16s in Ukraine, and these F-16s have a nuclear capability capable of shooting tactical nuclear weapons called the 61A or the 61B. And these 61As and Bs have been moved into Europe, and Stoltenberg has now announced that they are arming those weapons. And this is what he said. He said it in, undertone dialogue, coded dialogue, you might call it. But that's what he said. And so as a consequence, the Russians have said, look, when a plane takes off in Poland and launches a missile at Russia, we're going to bomb the runway in Poland. That's what's going to happen. And there is discussion about a preemptive strike as well. Now, the word preemption is now going around the circles. For instance, Hezbollah is now talking about a preemptive strike against Israel because Israel has come out and said, and then their war cabinet has decided, they're going to go to war with Israel or with Lebanon. So because of that, Hezbollah is preparing, and Hezbollah has said, well, if we're going to go to war with Israel, then we're going to launch a preemptive strike, a massive missile strike all over Israel. And it's not just going to be targeting Haifa. They're going to target everything. They're going to be targeting their storage depots for ammunition, their storage depots for fuel, their storage depots for natural gas, their ports. They're going to be targeting the Dimona nuclear power plant and whatever, and their runways and their bases and everything else. They're going to be targeting all of that. And this, remember that Hezbollah may have 1 million missiles. So as a consequence, we can see that the likelihood of this thing exploding into a massive war is very, very likely. I mean, this is the match that once this match is lit, boom, it goes off. And when this match goes off, then we've got a real problem. And the real problem is that Hezbollah has said, if Israel launches a single aircraft from a Cypriot base on the island of Cyprus, they will strike that base in Cyprus. And that puts Hezbollah at war with Greece. And if Greece enters a war against Hezbollah, Turkey will enter the war against Greece. Then you have Turkey and Iran and Lebanon and Syria and Iraq and possibly Egypt all entering the war against Israel, and Israel fighting back with Greece and the United States. But the United States may be very well occupied with what the Russians are preparing to do. And that's what we're going to look at today. All right.
Could World War III? I mean, we're definitely seeing hooks in the jaws of certain powers that be, where they could relinquish their need to control and allow certain elements to fizzle out. However, we're seeing a greater and greater escalation of world forces, Ukraine and Russia, Israel and Hamas, and Israel versus all of the Arab world surrounding them, and how the United States will be drawn into conflict in all of these realms, not to mention Asia and the influences that are happening over there, and the BRICS nations, and the challenge to the world order as it is. So very interesting topic. If you guys have any insight or theories or opinions or any current news that you people should be aware of, please leave it in the comments below this video. And thank you guys for your time. That's all the news for this week.
All right, thanks Jake for another great current news as always, and we want to share with you guys our updated promo to our Babylon Rising bookstore, so check this out.
Check out our new and improved BabylonRisingBooks.com, where you can get Rob Skiba's books, bundles, DVDs, DVD-ROMs, videos, and so much more. You can even get Sheila and Jeremiah's books, so check it out now.
And that's also where you should be able to get the comic book when we release it. So stay tuned to that, and it's about that time for an all-new Uppa's Corner. Take it away, Uppa.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
The strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. These are the kinds of subjects a man named Robert L. Ripley challenged us to believe it or not.
Believe it or not, you.
Wally, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
Believe it!
You're a loony.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, as we know it, came from a German fairy tale that's been around for centuries. The dwarfs were always an important part of the story, but they didn't have individual names apart from one stage adaptation until Walt Disney came along. However, Happy, Grumpy, Sleepy, Sneezy, Bashful, Dopey, and Doc weren't the only names the writers considered. According to The Guardian, we could have had dwarfs named Jumpy, Burpy, Puffy, Stuffy, Lazy, Wheezy, and the cringe-inducing Deafy. Believe it or not.
I prefer those names.
Because humans can't sit for days at a time while Boeing tests their in-flight Wi-Fi systems, the company uses something a bit more unusual to mimic the conditions of people being on a flight. Potatoes. According to USA Today, the vegetables make the ideal stand-ins because of their water content and chemistry, which absorbs and reflects radio wave signals the same way humans do. Believe it or not. People try to sell some unique, unusual, and downright weird things online. But in 2006, one man kicked the eccentric nature of the digital marketplace up a notch by trying to sell an entire country, New Zealand to be exact, on eBay. A prankster from Brisbane, Australia, started with a price of 1 penny Australian and managed to get the bids up to $3,000 before the item country was taken down from the site due to a violation of eBay's policy. Believe it or not. The next time you're looking for a unique getaway, forget about booking a room at a quirky hotel and instead consider spending the night in a giant potato. No, it's not a real freakishly large potato. It's a 28-foot long, 12-foot wide structure in Boise, Idaho that looks like one, but it's made up of steel, plaster, and concrete. After being turned into a tiny apartment by the Idaho Potato Commission, it was put up on Airburb, where you can book it for $200 a night. Believe it or not. If they put it in a movie, you'd never believe it. Robert Todd Lincoln was saved from a gruesome train accident by the brother of the man who would later assassinate his father. Lincoln, the younger, traveling to D.C., ended up on a crowded train platform. He pressed himself up against the train to let other people pass. But when the train began to move, he fell between the train and the platform. He might have been squashed if not for the then famous stage actor Edwin Booth, who pulled Lincoln up by the collar and back onto the platform. Believe it or not. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. I told my computer I needed a break, and now it won't stop sending me Kit Kats. I got a new pair of gloves today, but they're both lefts, which, on one hand, it's great, but on the other, it's not right. I don't trust stairs. They're always up to something. Will glass coffins be a success? Remains to be seen. The man who invented knock-knock jokes should get a Nobel Prize. What's the difference between ignorance and apathy? I don't know, and I don't care. I hate Russian dolls. They're so full of themselves. Most people are shocked when they find out how bad I am as an electrician. What's the difference between an outlaw and an in-law? Outlaws are wanted. I've just written a song about tortillas. Actually, it's more of a rap. I'd like to start with the chimney jokes. I got a stack of them. The first one is on the house. The best time to add insult to injury is when you're signing someone's cast. Somebody actually complimented me on my driving today. They left a little note. It said, "Parking fine." Once my dog ate all the Scrabble tiles. For days he kept leaving little messages around the house. I said his head you idiots. Bring me the Coors head. And don't forget to come back every 10 years for updates. Times change, you know. I hate standing in line so long just to get into the club. Frequent urges to self-govern? Constant aching for freedom? Mr. Jefferson, you have appendicitis. Godfather, this here is Jimmy the Weasel from the Chicago family. His pronouns are dies, dem, and dos. If Jesus tried to feed the 5,000 today, I can't eat that. I'm a vegan. Has that fish been tested for mercury? Is that bread gluten-free? The Army's last-ditch effort to destroy Mothra. Okay, men, here he comes. Act calm and keep toasting. Anyone know a sing-along? Where the deer and the antelope work. Pick one out of the lineup. I was hoping her first sentence would be, I love you, Mommy. Not, what's the Wi-Fi password? Put peace down as a no. See? The rug looks so much better with a splash of color. You're a genius. 78th Annual Doggy Awards. The award for Best Actor goes to Stanley, the Golden Retriever, in I Haven't Been Fed Yet. Okay, I guess technically you have 27 wishes. Warm seat alert. Human just got out of armchair.
Yep. That's funny.
Dang, this can't be right. I can hear the stage, but I can't see the blame thing. What the? Another little casket? Birds of prayer. We too were once birds of prey, but then we saw the error of our ways. Anytime, Slim. Why is the electric bill so high? Alexa, turn on the lights. Ah! Alexa, turn on the TV. Ah! Alexa, play music. Ah! Alexa. Gates of Hell. Okay, sir, would you like Inferno or non-Inferno? Just kidding. It's all Inferno, of course. I just get a kick out of saying that. Hold that post, Mom. I want to post a picture of my food. Use nice, even strokes. Always remember to make your trees look like happy trees. Pulled pork farm. This cow belongs to Daryl Jones, so hands off. I think it's time to cut your bangs. You've been guarding a pile of rocks all day. White smoke means she's decided what to cook. Black smoke means it's done. Zorak, you idiot! You mixed incompatible species in the Earth terrarium. Give me a hand here, boys. It's young Will Hawkins. Dang fool tried to ride into the sunset. I've been looking at your timesheets, Webster. Leaving early, coming in late, etc., etc. Working for the railroad, Webster, means working all the livelong day. Electric car charger, powered by a diesel generator. We've got to be the stupidest species on the planet. And that concludes another OPA'S Corner.
Mein Hut, der hat 3 Ecken. 3 Ecken hat mein Hut. Und hat nicht 3 Ecken, dann ist es nicht mein Hut.
Thank you, Yuba, for another great OPA'S Corner. Now a word from our good friend, JJ. Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below. Alright, it's time for an all-new History's Mysteries. So today for History's Mysteries, we're going to be talking about one of the most baffling cases that I've ever talked about here on Skiba News Nation. And it's about the Yuba County Five, which is a group of young men from Yuba County, California, each of them with different disabilities, who were reported missing after attending a basketball game from California State University. And their disappearance and what happened to them is just crazy. So let's go ahead and play this first clip so you get a better understanding.
Friday. Joseph Shones was scouting some back roads in the Plumas National Forest. He spent the better part of the day navigating his Volkswagen in hopes of returning with his family the next day. However, due to harsh weather conditions, his venture led to his car becoming stuck around 5:30 p.m. Miles away from help and with dwindling options, he hopped out of his car to give it a push. In a strikingly unlucky turn of events, though, this physical exertion would lead to him enduring a heart attack at the worst possible place. In the worst possible time, he returns to the confines of his vehicle, enduring the pain and contemplating on what to do. A short while later, though, he'd catch his biggest break. 2 sets of headlights coming from the opposite direction, and the shadows of what looked like a woman, a baby, and a group of guys walking towards him while engaging in conversation. After realizing that this could be his ticket home, he fumbled out of the car and began calling for help. Once he started doing so, the headlights turned dark, and the conversation fell silent. A couple hours later, with his car still running, Shones would encounter another anomaly. Flashlights shining in the far distance. As expected, he'd jump out once more, vehemently pleading for one of them to notice him. However, this too fell unsuccessful. Another couple of hours pass, and Shones' car runs out of gas. Fortunately, though, by this point, he felt well enough to exit his vehicle and begin a trek up the road towards a lodge roughly 8 miles away. It was on this walk when he'd witnessed a 1969 Mercury Montego with no passengers inside. Considering the circumstances, and having spotted numerous people in the last few hours, he didn't think much of it. His trek to the mountain lodge took him to the early morning of the next day, and there, he was able to obtain medical treatment and much-needed help to get his car out of there. What he failed to realize, however, was the fact that on this journey, he passed the vehicle of 5 men that would soon become enveloped in one of the strangest unexplained mysteries in history.
So, as you see, Charlie's here because he wanted to help me with the second clip, and we're going to be talking about that events that happened that day leading up to the disappearance. So let's go ahead and play that clip.
February 24th. It was on this day when the lives of 5 longtime friends would converge. 30-year-old Jack Madruga would make his rounds within Yuba City in Oroville, California to pick up the others for a night out at a Chico State basketball game. 29-year-old William Sterling, 24-year-old Jack Hewitt, 32-year-old Theodore Wire, and 25-year-old Gary Mathias made up this close-knit bunch, commonly referred to as the Boys, and they were all eager for a night out before competing in a basketball game of their own. The group played for a team called the Gateway Gators, an extracurricular segment of the Yuba City Gateway program. This was a rehabilitative center aimed at helping them learn a trade while overcoming their mild intellectual disabilities and mental health issues. It was because of this notion that the group lived with their parents, and with this came the expectation that they'd return home later that night. Jack Madruga, the owner of his prized 1969 Mercury Montego, was known to have recently worked as a dishwasher at a local fruit company. He was keen on handling his finances. However, due to what family describes as him being slow in thought, he found it difficult to maintain a job. William Sterling was known to be Madruga's best friend. He was deeply religious and enjoyed spending his free time reading literature to console patients in mental hospitals. Ted Wire, the oldest of the bunch, enjoyed confiding in his friends, however was known to lack basic common sense. According to his brother, he was known to have spent over $100 on pencils for no reason. He was employed for a bit as a janitor and a snack bar clerk, but was later urged by his family to quit, since they believed he was causing problems. Jack Hewitt was known to be slow to react and typically hung around Wire. He was taken under his wing, so to speak, and frequently required his help to perform basic tasks, such as dialing phone numbers. Gary Mathias was the most enigmatic of the group. He was the only one that lacked an intellectual disability, however, in its place, suffered severe mental health issues. The most prominent was his schizophrenia, which was the cause of his discharge from his brief time in the army. Both Mathias and Jack Madruga were the only two in the group that possessed a driver's license. And so they embarked. A roughly 1-hour trip was ahead of them, and conversation ensued surrounding sports in the anticipation of a win for themselves the very next day. The boys' uniforms were already laid out back home by their parents, so they were ready to roll. Things were going good. 10 p.m. Chico State's road opponent UC Davis takes the win. Considering the men's favorite team were UC Davis, it's safe to say that celebratory snacking was in order. They hit up a local convenience store by the name of Bears, where they loaded up on a Hostess cherry pie, a lemon pie, a Snickers bar, a Marathon bar, a couple Pepsis, and a quart of milk. It's been noted that the clerk that checked them out that night was trying to close, and as a result was mildly annoyed by them being there. Little did they know that they'd be one of the last ones to ever witness this group alive. The boys jump back in the car and embark on their journey back home. They didn't make it back home that night. Instead of driving south, they took a detour east. Their journey that night encompassed their ride from Oroville to Chico. You would think that they'd head straight back down Highway 99 and Highway 70, but that didn't happen. Right before arriving in Oroville, the driver took a detour off of Highway 70 and onto the Oroville-Quincy Highway, a road that runs across Lake Oroville and up towards the Plumas National Forest. They drove until the road ended and continued their journey up a dirt trail until their vehicle became stuck in the snowdrift. It's unclear what happened from this point forward, but sometime after this arrival, they'd exit the confines of their car and embark into the night. Back at the lodge, Joe Shones' medical treatment had gone well. He paid no mind to the Mercury Montego since it wasn't out of the ordinary, and by midday, he was able to get his car gassed up and headed home. Concurrently, since the boys were nowhere to be found, the mothers of Ted Wire and William Sterling were contacting police, pleading for help in finding their children. It was out of character for every single one of them to be away from home for prolonged periods of time. So they believed that the worst had happened to them.
So each boy had a different disability, or each man, I believe they were all over 18, but had the minds of children, decided to go out to watch a basketball game and you know, everything's fine. Then they decide to detour and go completely off route. So everything kind of surrounding it seems very strange. Like, why would they do these kind of things and all that? But now we're going to be talking about the search of the 5 missing boys and how some very strange circumstances surrounding their disappearances and what happened. So let's play this next clip.
Government officials insist that this is an isolated incident, yet that this story unfolds.
Tuesday. A forest ranger scouting the area notices an abandoned turquoise Mercury Montego. It was left on an unpaved road near Elks Retreat, a staggering 2.5 hours from where the basketball game took place. The vehicle appeared ordinary. It was unlocked, the window was down, and snack wrappers littered the seats. In the gas tank was more or less a quarter tank of gas, and by the time it was located, it wasn't stuck. Jarringly, considering how rough the terrain of this trail is, the vehicle was found with minimal damage. Yuba County PD began broadcasting the details and photos of the missing men, and for the next 5 days, their search team would scour the region. This would soon prove difficult, however, considering the fact that this was in the middle of a harsh winter in the mountains. It's been reported that the search team nearly lost people on a couple occasions, and by Sunday, a harsh winter storm would move in, dumping nearly 9 inches of snow in the area. It was because of this, the environmental hazards, and the fact that time was running against them that led the police to call off the search until snowmelt that spring. And as the case sat on hold, their families were frustrated, and the 5 men were left out there, isolated, nowhere to be found.
So the police kind of just brushed it off as if it was no big deal, and they didn't seem to care that these boys were missing, and the families were pissed. I mean, they were like, why aren't you guys looking? Like, they had mental disabilities, but they didn't even try. They just gave up after, you know, however many hours. And so that's what we're going to be talking about next. Well, actually, we're going to be talking about next the discovery that was made and some of the weird surroundings around it. So check this out.
June. A group of bikers are out on a weekend ride and head up onto the sites of an abandoned Forest Service trailer at the Daniel Zink campground near Bucks Lake. The facility involved a main, large trailer in the middle with multiple smaller satellite ones around it. When they pulled in, they noticed a prominent, malodorous smell emanating from the main structure. Immediately after, a broken window. They head inside, curious on what they've stumbled upon, and a body. From head to toe were bed sheets concealing their identity, and after pulling them off, they discovered that it was one of the 5 men that disappeared 4 months prior. It was Ted Wire, 80 pounds lighter and with a considerable beard, lending credence to the possibility that he took refuge here for more or less 2 months. In the bed, they discovered his body with his shoes missing. With that, his feet badly frostbitten. It appeared that he passed away due to starvation and exposure to the elements. However, he strangely could have avoided this fate altogether. Since he took shelter inside of a Forest Service trailer, he had access to ample heat sources and enough canned food to last all 5 men months if they chose to stay there. While they found 12 open cans scattered throughout the room, the vast majority of them were unopened, and it also appeared that no effort was taken to block off the window that was broken when they entered. The scene? Bewildering, especially considering that it was 19 miles away from where Joe Schoen spotted their abandoned car. But all in all, it was the jumpstart investigators needed to get back on this case. The search continued. With mounting public attention and hope for closure, search teams prowled the new focus area southeast of Bucks Lake. It would only take a day before they'd catch their next break, too. On June 8th, police discovered the corpses of Bill Sterling and Jack Madruga nearly 5 miles south of where Ted Wire was found. In Madruga's pocket, his car keys. It was noted that he'd been dragged a short distance and was partially eaten by animals. For Sterling, his remains were scattered around the area a few feet away. He was nothing but bones. Since the bodies were discovered closer to the vehicle and on a potential road they could have taken northbound, they believed that on their hike, the pair couldn't press on any further and met their demise through a combination of the elements and mounting fatigue. 2 days later, the father of Jack Hewitt discovers numerous articles of clothing belonging to him a couple of miles northeast of the service trailer. Soon after, his remains. Interestingly, a short distance west of their location, service blankets and flashlights were discovered lying by the road. This discovery led investigators to the belief that he and Gary Mathias more than likely made it to the trailer with Ted Wire and lived with him for an undetermined amount of time. Their reasoning was because of the existence of Mathias' tennis shoes left in the room that Wire was found in. The theories are tenuous, but they believe that they spent most of their final weeks alongside Ted Wire in the trailer. After he passed away, however, they wanted to get away from the corpse and set out towards the northeast to achieve that. It was on this hike that the pair would meet their demise, spending their final days exposed to Mother Nature. Now, it would make perfect sense. However, to date, the remains of Gary Mathias have never been found. As of now, his missing persons case remains open, leaving questions abound surrounding the motive and the circumstances that late winter night.
So I believe that the police would have searched a little bit harder and went into those cabins. They would have found at least some of them that were still alive. I mean, nobody knows what happens or what happened, and that Gary Mathias is still an open case, which is very strange. So for this next clip, we'll be trying to put all the pieces together. So let's go ahead and play this next clip of putting the pieces together. So check this out.
Without a doubt, there are questions about this case. The main one, though, encompasses the following. Why did they not head home? Backing up and taking a look at this case presents an anomaly that's frequently brought up. Gary Mathias. He had a friend that lived in Forbstown, a few miles away from Oroville and where the car was found. This has led many to consider the potential that Mathias had more to do with this than some were letting on. If we take a look at their route that night, mapping it from Chico to where they abandoned the car, it makes sense. The Oroville-Quincy Highway is just north of Oroville, and the potential of Gary Mathias having driven up there in the past wouldn't be far-fetched. So let's entertain the idea that Madruga was convinced. He drove the car up the Oroville-Quincy Highway and missed the turnoff to Forbstown Road. As a result of this, he kept driving and driving until he eventually became stuck miles up a mountain trail. Now, up to this point, the events that night seemed like honest, innocent mishaps. What led the mother of Jack Madruga to think otherwise, however, was the fact that after they were stuck, why, with 5 sizable guys that could have rectified the situation with relative ease, did they decide to abandon the car and press onwards into the unknown? What was restricting them from turning back and undoing the mistake that they'd gotten themselves into? According to Jack's mother, she pled that there was some force that made them go up there. They wouldn't have fled off in the woods like a bunch of quail. We know good and well that someone made them do it. We can't visualize someone getting the upper hand on those 5 men, but we know it must have been. Considering the circumstances at the time, postulating the potential of nefarious activity wouldn't be out of the ordinary. The state that Jack Madruga's car was found in led to even further questions than it did answers. According to reports, his car was found in immaculate condition, something almost unheard of considering the rugged terrain that existed on the road they'd taken. With 5 moderately sized men packed into an already heavy and low-sitting vehicle, undercarriage damage was nearly a guarantee. Given the fact that Jack had never driven up on this road before, it seemed weird that he was able to navigate it with such prowess near midnight. Furthermore, when the car was found, Jack's window was rolled down, which his mother claimed was extremely uncharacteristic of him. Bearing in mind that Matthias and Madruga were the only 2 with driver's licenses, suspicion grew regarding the actual driver that night. Was Jack Madruga truly at the wheel, or did Matthias demand the keys while taking them up there? Considering Matthias's numerous run-ins with the law, this wouldn't be entirely outside the realm of possibility. Prior to 1976, he was known to have been unpredictable, however straightened out after being prescribed schizophrenia medication. It was reported by his stepfather that, quote, he had no notable contact with police during the 2 years leading up to his disappearance, and he hadn't gone haywire in private during that time. The reason I bring this up is because I see it mentioned all the time on various articles and forums. However, the evidence presented, especially considering his own disappearance, is relatively insubstantial. While this is a notable possibility, in my opinion, there are others that carry a bit more weight.
So before I get Opa and Jake's thoughts and opinions, let's play this final conclusion clip of one of the most baffling cases that I've ever researched. So check this out.
Let's talk about Joseph Shones. We can recall that he spent the better part of his Friday night stuck around the same area the boys were. It's staggering that he spent most of his night under the unluckiest of circumstances. However, I digress. In his testimony, he claimed that he witnessed something. A group consisting of a woman, a man, and a baby, all walking within the path of 2 sets of headlights. If we're assuming that his recollection is correct, then this leaves us questioning the identities of the other party involved. Ted Wyer's sister has come forth, theorizing on the potential that the men witnessed something nefarious that night, sometime after the basketball game. Perhaps they saw an attack, or some sort of signal, whether domestic or not, and decided to follow the family to help. I'm not entirely sure how large the distance between Shones and the group he witnessed were, but hearing the cries of someone in need would surely spark some sort of desire to help, instead of shutting up entirely. I find it strange that the headlights cut off, and the conversations halted in both instances when he saw people. While the circumstances don't scream maliciousness, they definitely don't drive the situation towards innocence. That is, if his recollection was correct. You see, since this testimony came out, Shones' story had slightly changed each time he shared it. While this, of course, could be a simple case of memory distortion, the notion that he changed it at all ultimately weakens his story altogether. According to sources, conversing with Shones after the fact was admittedly frustrating. He would claim that he was very ill during the moments he believed he witnessed the others, and essentially admitted that he could have hallucinated some of the details. Bearing in mind that the other party stopped dead in their tracks both times he called out for them, it could have easily been a figment of his imagination. But what if it wasn't? That's just it. The nature of word-of-mouth testimonies, weakened by the circumstances of their situations, ultimately leave them up for debates and shrouded in uncertainty. While a nefarious situation is plausible, we can't discount the potential that the boys' predicament that night was all one big accident gone wrong. Let's put Gary Matthias in the spotlight once more. Entertain this. The men are at the game. All's going well, and they leave that night without issue. They hit up Bears to grab some snacks before hitting the road back home. They're driving down Highway 99 towards Oroville, and somewhere on the way, Matthias convinced the others to visit his friend in nearby Forbstown. Jack agrees, and they detour right before Oroville onto the Oroville-Quincy Highway, where they eventually miss the turnoff onto Forbstown Road. The Oroville-Quincy Highway is incredibly dark at that time of night, so it would make sense. Hesitant to turn around since the highway tightly winds through the backcountry, the others suggested alternate turnoffs that were supposedly ahead. alternate turnoffs that, as we know, they never took. Before they know it, they're up a mountain road, lost in the darkness before becoming stuck. Now, while they could have dislodged the car and turned around, we can't rule out the possibility that they simply didn't think to do so in their situation. On top of this, it was reported that a day prior to their dilemma, a snowplow had cleared a path along the road that they got stuck on, potentially instilling a sense of optimism that some external party would soon be back to help. A party that never came. And so they roughly map out the nearest spot to get help, jump out of the car, and start a trek towards their destination. Since the service trailer was a whopping 19 miles away, it's safe to assume that surviving a trek of this magnitude against harsh weather is more or less a death sentence. As we know, the only ones that made it to the trailer were Matthias, Hewitt, and Wire. An undetermined amount of time later, Hewitt and Matthias would either leave to go get help for Wire or abandon his corpse and embark on yet another last-ditch effort to get themselves out of isolation. And it's on their way out that both Hewitt and Matthias both succumb to the elements, drawing their predicament to its unfortunate end. If you ask me, I think Matthias pressed on northeast, trying to make his way towards the Meadow Valley area. What he likely didn't realize, however, was the fact that it was roughly 21 miles away. If he were with Wire, someone that shedded nearly half his body weight, then we can assume that Matthias mirrored this to some magnitude, leaving him weaker than when he initially arrived there. I believe Matthias died somewhere around the Meadow Valley region, and wildlife got to him before search teams could ever make it out there. But that is just my postulation. The case of the boys from Yuba County is, by all accounts, one that doesn't make sense, and details that support one theory ultimately weaken the other. It seems that we have the segments in front of us, and they're mostly put together. Without the whereabouts of Matthias ever materializing, however, that's really all that we can do. Like, how was the car unscathed through rocky terrain? Why didn't they react to the cries of Joe Shones, someone they could have seen as their beacon for help? Why was the heat source and food that could have lasted them months untouched? It's cases like this that engulf me with fascination, even though there are still countless questions, countless loose ends, countless unknowns.
So was it Gary Matthias? I mean, nobody will ever know, you know. And Opa, I know that you watched the series on Netflix about the Unexplained. It's like the new one that they did, and they covered this story. And what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I think that the cold itself can make people not think straight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you know, with all of these bad decisions they've made, and getting out of the car and trying to hike somewhere, the cold's affected their reasoning power, and they just got picked off by the elements.
Yep. What are your thoughts, Jake?
I really wasn't familiar with this story, but it's interesting to hear you go through it. And yeah, I don't know. What a crazy situation, I think.
Yeah, one of the most crazy, unexplained stories of all time. Some people think it's alien. Some people think it's like everything. I mean, anything you could ever think of why they would go missing has been suggested by somebody in some way, shape, or form. But that's all I got for the Yuba County 5. And now I want to share with you guys something that I was informed about, sadly, last week, that one of our biggest fans of this show and of my dad passed away. She even had a cat named Skiba, and I want to pull up that photo. That's Skiba the cat. And her son reached out to me and told me her name was Veronica Williams, and I believe now she's hanging out with my dad in heaven, just waiting, watching over us and hanging out and having a good time. But so for this last clip, I want to dedicate to Miss Veronica Williams. So check out this clip. Hey, Skiba News Nation family, can you hear Charlie purring?
Yeah.
Hey, Skiba News Nation family, welcome to episode 83 of Skiba News Nation, your weekly source for the latest news, controversial topics, conspiracies, forgotten history, and so much more. I'm your host, Jeremiah Skiba, and this is my cat Charlie, who wants to be a part of this. And we'll be talking about... Jeez, man. Now, as always, Charlie, stop it. Stop it. You're cracking me up. As always, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Jake Grant. Welcome, Jake. How are you doing?
Hey. Enjoying the sweet putters of Charlie's purring right now. That's what I'm doing.
Charlie. He just wanted to say hello. Anyways, how have things been? Sorry for the awkward silence. We're in the studio, but look how cute Charlie is. I'm gonna edit all of this out, but if we don't, let's all look at Charlie. Look how cute he is. Oh, there he is. Charlie, say hi to your fans, baby boy. Oh yeah, get your stretches in. Yeah, he says hello. Anyways, thank you, JJ.
That's awesome, and my girlfriend and her kids really like board games and stuff, so we're definitely gonna check it out and see if we can. You're buying advanced copies, or is that what the Kickstarter is? You're helping to put it into fruition, because I don't know too much about Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's the premise of pre-ordering, pretty much, so that I don't have to foot the manufacturing bill right up front. So people pre-order, and then they'll get their copy at the game shipped this summer. Hey, Charlie! Get your butt out of camera, man. What the heck?
He does this every time, man. You want to say hi?
Hi,
hello.
Charlie. What a beautiful cat.
Community preparedness. Want to talk about some of the recent censorship kind of stuff that's going through. You have both the legislation banning anti-Semitic speech, which has pretty profound implications, and also the topic of the TikTok ban kind of being how they're shutting down the voice of the people type stuff, and why it's so important.
Sorry, Charlie was, he just wanted to make an appearance and stop to press all these buttons. Quit it, hey! Stop it. So there are three groups of people. One group, legal migrants. Group number two are the people who are coming here illegally, and group number three are the getaways. And that seems to be the majority of the people that are coming. Isn't that right, Charlie? Now, the elites were doing all of this on purpose. I mean, what would their motivation be? Well, I believe it's to keep the future blue. So let's play this next clip. Oh, but before we go to history, can we flash to cat cam real quick? Cat cam. Look how cute. Look how cute. Wants to hurt me. Cat cam. Cat cam. Beautiful. Ah, he bit me. Okay, it's time for some history. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Charlie just jumped up here because he heard his name. So that's all I got for history. And yeah, Jake, you got some good memes for me today?
First of all, I just wanted to say that was a fantastic blooper reel of our lovely Charlie, the cat superstar. Wow, we've had some great moments with Charlie over the years, haven't we?
Yep, many more to come, I'm sure. Isn't that right? Yeah. All right, man. Well, meet me up.
I got a few cool memes.
Sweet.
Here you go.
Meet me up.
Alrighty. Just a reminder, mosquito season has begun.
Yep. In this house.
Fortunately, we discovered here in Missouri, because there's so many cave systems, the bat mosquito population down pretty low. It's just made up for by the ravenous tick population, for those of you who are familiar with Missouri. Unfortunately, Jeremiah got to experience the tick situation when he came up here to visit us just this weekend.
I sure did. Those things do not die. Like you peel it off,
Death by like a fire.
You try to rinse it down the hose, and then you go back in the bathroom, and it's out of the drain, like trying to leach back onto you.
You guys might be wondering about my dye braids. We had a booth at HebrewFest, and so he encouraged me to try something new. So you probably won't see them next week, but here's my cool Jedi braid hairdo. Anyways, that's a meme in itself. Experience in watching cartoons. That car is very tired. My grandfather full of asbestos. My father full of lead. Me full of microplastics. All of us being poisoned the system we live in.
True.
They're gonna charge that dog with a couple felonies and a hate crime. How dare he? Pooping on that Rainbow Street.
That's a good dog.
Argument, and this dude locked my glasses. This is a deep fear that I have, you know, that somebody might lock my glasses off of my face. Man, I would be as blind as a bat. Alrighty, that awkward moment between Aaron and Moses. What? Popped out the fire like this. Golden calf experiment. Here we go. Here are the tan lines of the next generation.
Oh, man.
Nice. All right. You'll enjoy this one. Why cat racing never took off? Maybe you can explain what we're looking at here.
Well, see, cats have a thing with these boxes, and they think it's a game. They think, Charlie, can you comment on this this photo? He's kind of offended, actually, that I just asked him about that photo. No, but they're obsessed with boxes.
Oh yeah. You know, because we're talking about cats this episode, I couldn't help but to think when I saw this, Jeremiah, how a CAT scan really works.
Maybe that's why it takes so long.
Are, you know, that's what all the banging noise is they're chasing stuff.
Yeah.
One more that made me think of you, Jeremiah. If I'm ever killed by a mountain lion, just know my last words were, "Here, kitty, kitty."
Yeah. Kind of like with the raccoons.
Yeah, that was fantastic, man. Those dunes were so cute. I've never seen baby raccoon. If you guys are curious, you should check out our Skiba News Nation special from last week.
Yeah, those things were so cute. They didn't have a mom or something. I guess it might have been might have died, and the people in the thing before us were feeding them, and they were just hanging out.
Orphan raccoons are the perfect candidates for adoption for somebody who wants to live in a wild house.
Yep.
All right, when there's a tornado, watch, but you're ready. Put on your slippers, Dorothy, and fly away. Man, in the past couple months, there's been some terror tornadoes, and it's almost like, you know, unless you're preparing to go to the land of Oz, you pretty much just gotta hunker down and hope you know, the tornado misses you, because tornadoes have been crazy, just wiping places out lately.
Yep, same here.
This is how NASA astronauts get around their own homes. Boing, boing, boing.
We gotta practice somewhere.
All right. Yeah. Could you stop? I hate when my food touches. I love this picture because I've been telling my girls some make-believe stories about a mighty warrior of Yah saving a princess from a dragon. Pretty cool. Alrighty, last one. When you figure out the world is a stage.
Yep.
Reminds me of some of those pictures I showed earlier on in the show, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, that's all for this week, guys.
Awesome, Jake. Thank you for another great current news, memes as always. Opa, thank you for another great Opa's Corner, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's History's Mysteries and little Charlie blooper reel. We hope you enjoyed today's episode as a whole, is what I meant to say. So stay awake, not woke, subscribe, and stay tuned. If you like what we do here on Skiba News Nation, please like and subscribe, and also share with others so that we can grow the biggest truth-seeking community on the internet. Huge shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We couldn't do this show without you, so I just wanted to say thank you. And if you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation.